Y'all being assholes today.
I can do whatever I want today. They announced a new fucking Metroid game.
I almost forgot some big news.
Chris, I don't want to say I was so happy for you. I mean, come on. I was pleasantly pleased for you today. I said I can't get too excited, except for I'm gonna snipe that fucking game from under your nose.
You can't afford it, brochacho. I'm literally bidding more money than you have left.
You literally don't have the balls. You've been saying big balls Gilly for the whole time. You can't do it.
EJ, you can slow down. You don't have to bait him this hard. He's gonna still have money left over to counter bid like Forza or whatever you're trying to go for.
I saved all my money for E3. I dropped 7 $1 bids on games so that I could outbid you on anything I wanted on E3, and this is what I fucking want to do it for. And you knew it was coming.
Also, EJ can't crawl out of the hole that he dug himself.
I am in. Wait, actually, I gotta check. I think with Binding of Isaac.
Okay, I don't want to see that.
I'm in the lead right now.
You're not. I'm in the lead.
Oh, did you get another game release? I'm at 65 with Binding of Isaac.
You don't have 65 yet. We're not counting that till the end of the year.
Oh, whatever. It's not going to change. That's 10
points. I'm
going
to submit to a blog, and I'm going to write a review for Binding of Isaac Repentance or whatever. And
dare
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10.
That's fraud, and I will sue you. I will see you in court, sir.
Bring it up with the commission.
I am the commission.
There we go.
Console Crusade podcast. Litigation Crusade. We're all lawyers now, baby. This is Gilly for Olsen and Durhive. That is a mouthful for you.
Oh, baby, a triple.
My
right.
God. It's E3 this week, man. And I thought I'd be excited because y'all were talking about it, and I've been really deep into this fantasy critic thing. Like I've been in the algorithm, man. The Matrix. Trying to figure out how I'm going to come back and beat y'all. And I was like, I literally spent like half an hour the other day trying to figure out, like doing research on all the games that it was still eligible to drop, to figure out like, okay, if I bid on X game, the likelihood that that's going to give me more points than say Shin Megami Tensei 5, which might only give me 9 points or some shit, right? So anyway, E3. I thought I'd be more excited for it. Turns out I wasn't. I know Chris had expressed in the group chat that this E3 fucking sucked, which I have no horse in the race. But
in that regard, Chris was specifically talking about, I would imagine, Square Enix, which was like fumble after fumble for 30 minutes or however long they presented.
Oh yeah, I'm really glad I didn't waste time with that. That was the only other one I was like really excited about, since Sony doesn't care anymore because they think they're untouchable, which is a big fucking mistake. And Microsoft/Bethesda don't have any games coming out this year that matter, in my opinion. So yeah, Squeenix was a big old fat face plant. So if you give a rat's ass about games that you're gonna have your hands on in the next 6 months, there was nothing doing at most of these pressers.
So after your text, Chris, I went back and checked out the Square Enix press conference because I don't give a shit about almost anything Square Enix does. Dude, they led off with like over 20 minutes of Guardians of the Galaxy? What the fuck was that?
It was an interesting choice. It's tough because E3 and just any commercial for these games, it's easy for us to say we don't want to see a CG trailer and that's it. And at least good on Square Enix for showing a bunch of gameplay. Like, I can respect them for that. It just wasn't a very exciting sort of slice of gameplay. And I have seen opinions that they were like, I've seen people that are super stoked for it, and I don't see where that's coming from. I thought the combat looked really bad. I thought the writing was just horrendous. It was this really bad, quippy, like try hard kind of stuff, and it just wasn't like resonating with me. But if you're into that, then that's like really cool for you. But just the fuckboy Peter Quillhair, I mean, it matches the character. I mean, at least that is like it's for him, but it just was really annoying and stupid for me to look at.
Badly written try-hard humor is literally all that Guardians of the Galaxy is. And yeah, I said it. And yeah, maybe that's my hottest take in a minute on this podcast, but I cannot stand the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you as far as like the ethos behind it, but I've enjoyed the movies, never any of the comics, but this is definitely like video game version of that. And video game, like Western video game writing is horrible. like Japanese video game writing is really bad too, but at least it's corny and anime, and I can like forgive it for that because of the trappings. But when Western developers try to make me take them seriously, it just makes me roll my eyes. It's all bad.
You guys make good points. It looks cheesy as hell. The Guardians 1 movie, I thought, like, did the Marvel, like, formula pretty well, but had enough, like, pathos to, like, make me care. I think the second one, everybody got flanderized, and it was like, okay. And then you watch this trailer, you're like, I see what they're doing, but it's not landing. And the uncanny fucking, like, okay, these are all the characters I spent the last 5 or 6 years with, but like now, like, what is, it's the same thing as the Marvel's Avengers game. It was like this uncanny valley thing of like, it's kind of the guys I know, but kind of not.
I think a lot what contributes to that is them trying to make their people look like people. And that's something that what was that game called? The Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 didn't have that problem with that at all.
It was a comic book.
Yeah, and Spider-Man has a mask on most of the time, so that's not a problem for that character either, really, until he takes it off and he's either that weird 40-year-old man from the original version or he's like Tom Holland light in the new version. So that is like a little bit easier to deal with, but with like Avengers and with Guardians, you see these people that look like the porn parody of the movies that we know.
Right.
And it's only because they try to look like real people. And like, actually, I thought the facial animations, besides like the weird Drax teeth, I thought the facial like animations themselves, the rigging was really good, especially since this is also going to be a PS4 and Xbox One game. But I don't know, I can forgive them looking weird and looking off. It's just the writing is bad, the voice acting is even worse. And you know this is going to be like a 6-hour game with like quote unquote replayability because of the Telltale shit that they're trying to do.
I mean, the reason they led with it is because it's really the only major thing they have coming up before the end of the year. So it's kind of like they had to. But here's my thing, and this is a broader point we're going to talk about when we talk about Nintendo. But like, why haven't these companies figured out the E3 formula? It feels like it's such a copy and paste on how you should set these things up with like a little bit of hype, short bursts, a couple of quick reveals, some stuff that's coming soon. Like, you don't have to fucking blow the roof off the house every time. You just have to have a little bit. And that's what Nintendo did so well, was they had a little bit of everything. And there were like big reveals for guys like Chris, but like there wasn't, I mean, Metroid has sold like peanuts. So it's not like they revealed like the next whatever game. I mean, it wasn't even that big, but it was like enough really solid little things and really well paced. So I just don't understand how these companies haven't quite figured out how to do this. I do want to point out that something that I saw on Twitter, people complaining about, that I called on maybe 2 podcasts ago. Well, we're in this weird in-between phase where COVID kind of fucked everything up, delayed a lot of stuff, put everyone back behind schedule, and a lot of games that may have come out this year or may have been announced this year that got delayed, whatever. But on the other hand, you had all the fucking drama last year from the CD Projekt Red game. And so now I think there were probably some changes last minute to a lot of these conferences where people said, well, we should announce this game that's coming out in 4 years plus COVID. We don't know, you know. And so I think that's why a lot of people were bummed about it. It was like, oh yeah, there's nothing coming out, obviously. And God forbid we announce something that you're going to get excited about and then be shitty publicly for the next 5 years over. You know what I mean? So, you know, it was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of, I guess, what you expect. But I actually can't think of anything else other than another Square Enix thing was the Final Fantasy 1-6 remasters, which
Oh no, those, yeah.
people were excited for a second until it was like, wait, Google Play Store? It's a fucking mobile game?
Buy them individually.
Yeah, what the fuck is this? I don't even know what Xbox did. Like, I couldn't even tell you. I know I followed along on Twitter, but I couldn't.
Xbox showed a lot of really cool stuff.
Did they?
Personally. Yeah, it's a lot of 2022 stuff, which goes to Chris's point, but I think in years past, E3 has been a very broad mix of here's what's coming out this year, here's what's coming out next year, and here's what's coming out in the distant future. And I think the ratio of those mixes have been sort of, it varies depending on the publisher and depending on the developers. Like Square Enix loves to be like, hey, here's Final Fantasy 13 Versus and you won't see it for 10 years. Or Sony loves to do, hey, here's Last Guardian, you won't see it on this console generation. But with someone like Nintendo, they have been pretty good, I think, in sort of communicating with its audience to say, hey, this is what's happening this year mostly, and then a little bit of what's next year. And they like to say that to get expectations in line and then to either exceed those expectations or to put them on their head. But with a company like Square Enix, they didn't really say anything. They had like one little image that was like, we're going to talk about Babylon's Fall and Life is Strange and some other exciting things. And that leaves a lot of, possibility for them to talk about the stuff that the core fans, the hardcore fans, the ones that are bitching at Twitch and YouTube, to say, hey, maybe they're going to show Final Fantasy 16, which is a big franchise for them. But they didn't show it here because that game is still pretty far away, obviously. They didn't have anything else new to show. And also they have a co-marketing deal with Sony who wasn't at E3, so maybe they just don't want to show it here. But like, we don't know. We're not privy to that kind of conversation that they're having with their partners. So then we just get a weird sort of half-baked Square Enix conversation and presentation that has a game that's coming out in 2 months with Life is Strange, and then another game that's coming out in like 3 or 4 months with Guardians, but that's not exactly hitting for any of us on this podcast. So I'm sure it was exciting for some people, but I think in the broad areas, it wasn't exciting to the most intense fan base or the broadest audience. It's just that weird middle ground of people who are like lukewarm on these two new properties.
I would be really interested to go back over the last like 10 years of E3s and just do a cursory sort of overview of like...
Yeah, I think you're crazy if you think that E3 has been like, this is like a really, really bad E3, because if every E3 is a bad E3, then there hasn't ever been a good E3. And that's just like, your expectations are out of whack.
You have these industry talking heads coming out complaining about how fucking E3 is dead and it's pointless and why does this exist? As if all of us who follow video games go to E3 every year and it was like this, like, for a lot of these talking heads, it's a bunch of weirdos who get together and like fuck each other and like, guys, for us, this is what E3 always is. It's a bunch of video conferences and announcements, and we either get excited or we bitch about it. Like, your weird con fucking groupie shit that's weird and that doesn't affect us, and so it's...
Your yearly reunion is not relevant to us.
Like the rhetoric about how E3 is dead and it's irrelevant. I'm like, there will always be something relevant about a marquee block of time where things are expected to happen. E3 will always be a thing. The convention itself, I know a couple years ago they opened it up to the general public and trying to make it more of like an event for video game fans and not just like weirdo quote unquote journalists or whatever.
Right.
And Lord knows these companies don't need a bunch of fucking pro Jareds coming out to their convention hall and like creeping on under it. You know, they don't need that shit.
Yeah.
Like, to like be relevant and to get their shit out.
They don't need Dr. Disrespect filming children in the bathroom.
Or what the fuck ever. Like, seriously, fucking that creep. So anyway, yeah, I don't think this was a bad E3. I mean, especially because the only thing I really cared about would have been Sony and Nintendo. And seeing as Sony wasn't there, I was like, dude, Nintendo was super solid this year. Super solid. And I want to kind of run in and we can start going through it. Nick, you can kind of maybe go game to game. We got to let Chris just fucking go wild on Metroid here because there's a lot to unpack with that announcement. But I think they were the clear winner of E3 this year, which is not something we've probably been able to say in a long time, right?
Not since 2017, I would say. And I think that per the earlier conversation about Nintendo not talking about games that aren't going to release anytime soon, that is when they learned their lesson about not doing that. I definitely got my dick scorched on the Metroid Prime 4 title card, which is probably not coming out until at least the end of next year, if we're lucky.
Oh yeah, don't hold your breath.
So that's like a 5+ year cycle of development hell, although now Retro's got their hands on it, blah, blah, blah. So they learned their lesson. And so Nintendo's like, we are only going to show stuff that's coming out. And we're also going to remind you that we have a new Zelda, a new mainline Zelda in the works. We're going to just tickle the balls a little bit with it and show you that we've got some good stuff cooking. Give you some conspiracy theory fuel for people to start making big swings about lore stuff. And then giving me Metroid 5. I've been waiting almost 20 years for this. 19 years since Metroid Fusion came out. And I have been wondering and just going, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Like, Samus has turned on the Galactic Federation. They're going to come for her. Like, how is this going to play out? 19 years I've been waiting. And today, finally, I was biking to work. And I would have been at work on time to hide in my supply shed and watch E3 instead of prepping for my classes. But my back tire blew out. So I had to pull over and change the tube on my bike tire. And I'm like, well, it is 2 minutes
That's
until.
annoying to do on the back tire. You can't quick release that. You got to take the chain off and everything.
Yeah, it was terrible. But I had just had the same tire pop on Friday in a different stretch of road, so I had a repair kit and an extra tube and like everything I needed in my pack. So anyway, it's 1 minute till press conference time, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm putting headphones in, holding my cell phone while I ride my bike on this main thoroughfare, and hoping to God that nobody fucking hits me. And that is how I watched E3. And so I'm writing and I'm like muting and tucking stuff in. I'm on Discord with my buddy Nate. Shout out Nate. You're not going to listen to this, but that's okay.
Hold on. Imagine Chris gets struck by a vehicle right before the Metroid announcement. And this poor guy just misses the thing he's been waiting his entire life for. And this guy has got a fucking busted tire, getting fucking traffic coming at him. Oh my God, what a
Hey man,
nightmare.
that could be a best case scenario. That could be like time travel with like a coma. You know, he wakes up and be like, Chris, Metroid Dread, Metroid 5, it's out.
He's like, what year is it? 2005?
And he's like, I don't have arms anymore. I can't even play this.
Oh my God.
Oh, darkness. Yeah, so I'm writing, and what's his name comes out. He's like, I know you're hoping for a Metroid Prime 4 video. I'm like, they're going to tell me it's delayed. Instead, here's a trailer for a new game. And I'm like, Nate, I'm pulling over, Nate. And so I pull over, throw my bike to the side. I sit down on the bench, and Nate goes, Fusion 2 is a joke. Snap 2 shot of teched up Fusion suit. I start screaming and jumping up and down. And then it's like Nintendo presents. And I'm like, no. Metroid 5. Full scream, like, like at the top of my lungs on the side of Diamond Road in Anchorage, Alaska, jumping up and down and screaming. Yeah, this is like probably the greatest day of my gamer life in a very long time, because as good as Samus Returns is a remake, right? And Mercury Steam proved they have the bona fides to handle this franchise, so I'm really glad that they developed Dread, because I have all the faith in the world in them. But a first like genuinely new Metroid title since Other M. So like this is...
Ooh, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, it's been 10 years even, I think, since that came out. So
Joe, can you give us, Chris, a brief rundown? Dread was the sequel that was initially announced for the DS like 15 years ago. And then disappeared.
Well, it was leaked. It was talked about in like hushed tones industry wide.
Okay.
And then it was referenced in, was it Prime 2 or Prime 3? There was a codec entry basically that was like, Metroid Project Dread is nearing completion. So Metroid Prime 3, what was that, like 2008?
Yeah, we were still in high school. So that sounds right. 2008. Yeah, but you're exactly right,
So
Nick.
it was, and even, okay, so I don't know if you watched this, Chris. I think you were at work, so I don't know if you've gotten a chance to go back and rewatch it. But during the Treehouse presentation, there was a short video beforehand that had Sakamoto talking about Dread and like why they chose this title, what the sort of like premise of the story is, and how it was started and canceled, then started and canceled 2 times before that. The Mercury Steam, they started working with them and they like got along with them enough that I don't know if they pitched it to him or if he was like, hey, let's try to return to this idea. But it makes so much sense. It's such a glow up for that studio too, to have like a very mediocre sort of development history as far as reception and like popularity, and then to latch onto the Metroid franchise and have like a developer that cares, and then it seems like Nintendo's funding it well enough and that this developer is actually showing that they have the chops to make good games. It's like truly a best case scenario for the franchise and for that developer.
Oh, absolutely. And I did see that Sakamoto quote that he said that this is the game he wanted to make 15 years ago, and said, we do not have the technological like capability to make the game that I want to make. So just the fact that like this is the vision for that game that was leaked, rumored, talked about for so long. And yeah, that little tease in Prime 3, and it's not even like a logbook entry, it's just a random computer that you can scan on one of the planets that it says Project Dread.
Right, it's an Easter egg, really.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an Easter egg. I again, like title card, Metroid Dread, started screaming. Like just
Bro, even before that, like just the whole the seeing Samus for the first time in her new suit and seeing that like weird robot thing that looks like the autopilot from WALL-E, and how freaky that thing is, and just like they really got the tone right in that initial reveal, going to Metroid and then 5, and it's just like, oh, they're doing it. And then later getting that like the sound hit and the Metroid Dread and just the double. They did it. They did both of it. They did the whole thing. I was hyped. I was so pumped.
Yeah, it's probably one of the better reveal trailers that I think I've seen from, just in terms of like the craft, the construction of this trailer, as you just discussed, is so unbelievably good.
And seeing the gameplay and actually seeing cutscenes and seeing gameplay, it's all in-engine stuff. Like, I think that was a really tight, like 2 minutes, a minute and a half for reveal and then trailer. I was really impressed. I'm really happy with how Nintendo is treating this game in particular.
I've talked about before how I'm not much of a Metroidvania guy, unless it's got like roguelite elements. But it was really interesting. You know, I played Super Metroid, and I played a little bit of Metroid Prime, but I'm not a big Metroid guy. It's just not something I've ever really done. But it was really interesting to see a Metroid game fully realized as a 2D, 3D hybrid sort of thing, right? So obviously 3D graphics, but on a 2D plane. But I was like, oh, okay, so this kind of thing can work in 2021. Of course, I know you talk about Samus Returns, which nobody played on the 3DS, except for you, Chris.
Really unfortunate. I mean, it's super unfortunate. If they had put that out before the Switch came out, I think that would have doubled that game's sales.
Oh, definitely. But like I said, it was good. And when we talked about it in 2017, I talked about how I think it probably is like the best looking 3DS game, period, like full stop. That the way they use the stereoscopic 3D and the 2D, 3D sprite, 2D plane, it is like deep. You see so deep into SR388, and it really creates an atmosphere that is just unlike any other. Like that other Nintendo franchises are really just not that like uniquely capable of producing outside of probably Zelda.
I think that's Metroid's like strongest suit, really, is that it's so completely different than everything else that Nintendo does. And because it's coming from Nintendo, it becomes a much more striking sort of difference, like the dichotomy between it and other franchises in the repertoire. But even watching Metroid Dread and seeing the gameplay sort of preview on Treehouse and seeing the backgrounds and how large in scope it looks in the gameplay as well, and how small Samus is on the screen, but because you actually have a 720p like resolution on the console and assumedly 1080p on the TV, like you get to still be able to see where you are, what you're doing, where you're aiming, the full motion range of pointing in any direction while moving, the slide, the melee, the increased capabilities of the melee combat. This seems like a really fast and tight Metroid game. The way that she like runs is so much quicker than any other Metroid game when you're not doing like the super dash or whatever you call it. Like, I think it's really impressive, and I'm really excited, and I want to play this. And it's coming out in October. It's coming out this year.
It's
and
coming
everyone was
out.
worried, like, oh, Nintendo has nothing for the second half of the year. It's like, oh, they just haven't talked about anything yet. We're just not used to companies not talking about their year like the year before.
For me, the thing that cut through in the trailer, because I didn't watch any of the Treehouse footage, but just in the trailer was like you guys were talking about, like the atmosphere of what this world is, and you mentioned like the scale of Samus in this world, and like Dread is like the perfect name for this. It was suspenseful, like it seems more like a horror, you know, like Aliens, right, meets Metroid kind of thing than any of the other games that I've played. That's kind of what they went for in the original game at some points, but like,
Oh yeah,
it's fucking Super Nintendo, and it, you know, but like,
many bad guys named after Ridley Scott.
well,
so.
yeah, literally, but like, it actually cut through here, and when she was being chased or followed by the Emmy robot in one of those first cutscenes, the way that thing was fucking moving, dude, and she's so small in this fucking environment, and you're just like, oh my god, like, fucking go, like. It you know, it makes you feel the things. So that's good.
And it's the truest way to be a successor to Metroid Fusion, because that's what really endeared me to that game as a 2D Metroid title, is the sequences where the SR388, no, that's the name of the planet, where the SAX, which is an X-parasite that has basically regenerated Samus's suit from like pieces of her tissue, like her tissue that were taken off of it. is hunting you, and it has the ice beam, and you have Metroid DNA in your body, which means if you get shot, your ass is grass. And that, like, even as a kid, like those sprites, like those were horrifying sequences, like trying to escape from just getting dusted by this being that is so much fucking stronger than you. And now, finally, I cannot believe a narrative continuation of this franchise is happening. I literally cannot believe it. Like, every time I think about it, I smile that we're going to finally know, like, how does this shake out? She was an ally of the Federation for years and years. She has actively, in their eyes, betrayed them. We would say rightfully so, because they were trying to breed the droids as weapons of war. And now they're coming for her. And to hear that they're going to button the whole story of this intertwined legacy of Samus and the Metroids, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what that's going to be like. I literally wrote fan fiction about what I thought Metroid 5 was going to be in middle school.
Right. I hope that they stick the landing.
Yeah, that's the thing is now I had never considered the narrative of a 2D Metroid game. Like, to me, that's not.
It is very background, and I think Fusion brought it to the foreground in a way that some people were not happy with, and some people were. And I think Sakamoto is a little bit shaky on his ideas of what Metroid is supposed to be versus what the fans believe Metroid is supposed to be. I mean, he was the guy behind Metroid Other M. So what your opinions of that game and what your opinions of Fusion and the Metroid series on a whole kind of dictates a little bit of what your excitement level is for the lore implications of this game and what the narrative would be. And they already showed Adam is in this game still. And I don't remember the ending of Fusion too vividly. I remember there being confrontations with was it the bigger form of the Metroids? Those the Omega Metroids?
Yeah, there was an Omega Metroid was the last boss.
There's an Omega Metroid, and then the SAX like sacrifices itself to fight it because it has a directive to hunt Metroids because that's what the X-Parasites do. Is they're mortal enemies. So the whole and just the SAX as a quote unquote character and it being a force that you're fighting and it being you, it's like everything good about what Shadow Link is in the Zelda series. It's like a really cool. I don't know. I think it's still cool. It's played out. You know, fighting yourself is played out, but I thought that was a really cool sort of play on the Metroid thing of starting powered up and then getting powered down so that you can progressively power up throughout the length of the game. And having this villain that is you who is fully powered up, but you're not there yet. That was the coolest thing for me in Fusion. And then also, like Chris said, all of the horror elements. I think it's literally called Nightmare with the computer that you're fighting with the monitor screen that starts like bleeding basically like digital black tar out of its eyes as you're beating the shit out of it. And it's just moving towards you in this boss arena. It's so fucking tight.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Absolutely. And this is, I guess we're gonna see how they button that story. Yeah, I still not have been able to catch the Treehouse stuff. I was at work. I went to the Rock Gym. I didn't warm up like an idiot, so I only spent like 45 minutes at the Rock Gym because my arms hurt. And when we get off this, I think it's go time to watch all that footage. But I'm gonna drink it up.
Yeah, you gotta watch it, especially for the director stuff. Some of the game, like the gameplay is whatever. It gives you a better idea of like what the moment to moment feels like and how the speed of the game works. And you're sort of they get. I think the charge beam is their first power up that they get, and they show a sort of mini game, not mini game, but like a cut in the gameplay to interact with this like damaged Emmy that's approaching you slowly and has this. It just has the eye, but it's like missing one of its arms, and you have to use the charge beam to like take it out in the face. And I thought that it looked like a really cool moment, and I think that the game's going to be interspersed with a lot of moments like that. And they had that in Samus Returns, if I'm not wrong, especially with like the little quick zoom ins for the combat, the counters, especially against bosses. Like you get that moment to get the counter off with just beating the shit out of them with their metal arm, you know.
Credit to Other M actually. Originated both of the ideas. The idea of they called it Sense Move in Other M, where if you dodge with perfect timing, you could like roll around and get on like the back of Zabijan space pirates and just like pound missiles into their head. And also flipping the Wiimote towards the screen would snap you into a first person aiming mode to fire missiles and to like hunt for more secret stuff. So like both of these things, Other M crawled so that these could run.
Yeah, why can't Metroid crawl? Sakamoto, I think, being the originator behind that game as well, I think that lends a lot of credence to that being the originator of it. And I always thought that I have never watched enough gameplay of Other M, but it always seemed like the gameplay in that game was actually kind of cool, but it was just hindered by maybe not enough budget or just not enough ideas, not enough people saying no to like really stick the landing. And now it's just sort of like a black mark on the history of Metroid and isn't really discussed deeply enough to give it the credit where the credits are due and give it the merits that it deserves.
Really got George Lucas, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, totally.
Plays great, story sucks. Lucas for sure.
Let's jump into some of the other stuff that happened. I'm just going to kind of run through a couple of quick things. I guess the first thing that happened, which is notable, is Homeboy from Tekken got announced as the next Smash fighter, Kazuya, which I was very lukewarm on. I was just like, all right, another... My thought with Sakurai is so fucking creatively bankrupt that he just has to put more fighting characters into this fucking game instead of actually having to come up with unique movesets for Nintendo properties.
Waluigi.
Give me Waluigi, god damn it!
No, don't do it, please.
No, there's so many other cool characters that they could do something creative with. And so I was like, okay, another fighting guy. I guess we're bringing in like the third wing of like weird fighting games no one's cared about in 15 years.
I wouldn't go that far. I think Tekken 7 is like one of the best-selling fighting games of all time. One of, like, top 10, I would guess.
When did Tekken 7 come out?
A while ago. It's been in like arcades, updated there, and I think it came out like 2013, 2014, around that time.
Okay. So it's
I want to say.
Yeah.
It might have been later. I mean, it was a little bit ago.
Tekken it to me feels like a very irrelevant thing in the video game landscape at large.
Sure.
Even Street Fighter does. I mean, Street Fighter has been on kind of a bummer of a run for a while now.
I don't think Smash Bros needs to be the place where only relevant characters get added, but I think that's where you and I might differ.
Yeah, I would rather, unless you're giving us like a marquee third party character, like give us the Crash Bandicoot. Give us the Squeenix character, right? Give us the Geno that all the dorks are asking for. Whatever. But there are plenty of other Nintendo first-party characters that they could do something with that is different than just another fucking sword fighter. Or in this case, a third-party character that's just another dude with fists. But then, he turned into a fucking ogre, man, or a gargoyle with fucking wings. And I was like, I'm in, bitch. I'm in. I don't know what just happened. I don't know this guy. I haven't played Tekken since I was 10.
You don't know the lore? You don't know the Kazuya lore?
No, who is Kazuya and what is he is a gargoyle?
Yeah.
Well, his dad is mad at him and he's mad at his dad, and it's a full family legacy of
I
being
can
demons
relate!
or whatever.
I don't have wings though.
He turns into a devil. He literally turns into a devil, and he's the final boss of Tekken 2.
Isn't he also, I think he's the main bad guy in Tekken 7, and I think he runs a corporation, an evil corporation of other devil spawn.
I
think.
stopped playing Tekken at Tekken
business
3.
units.
7 is the 10th best-selling fighting game of all time, which makes it only the third highest-selling Tekken game of all time.
Really? I didn't know if it was worse selling than prior Tekken games. I know like Mortal Kombat and Smash Bros topped those lists, so I think Street Fighter 2 might be really high up there as well.
I feel vindicated.
Tekken as a franchise, I think, is in the top 3 of the most relevant fighting game franchises. Top 4 because Smash Bros, obviously, but it's like
I was gonna say there's
it's
only
Smash
4
Bros,
of them.
It's Street Fighter, it's Tekken, and then it's Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
And then it's all like the anime fighters like Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue and this Arc System Fair. And then you get into like the history of stuff with like King of Fighters and Virtua Fighter and stuff like that. But I think Sakurai is such a like arcade stan that it makes sense that he would want this character. But also, wasn't it M who said that this Fighter Pass was chosen mostly by Nintendo or all the way by Nintendo?
I don't recall.
And the first Fighter Pass was like him being like, I love these characters and I want to like respect the fans with this drop. And that's why we got Joker for like no goddamn reason. But it was also the time that we got Banjo-Kazooie, so like you get more like weird sort of hype characters versus, oh, it's another fighting game character.
Am I wrong to assume that Tekken is more relevant in Japan than it might be in the mainstream here? I know for as far as fighting game, I mean the fighting game community is so niche as
Right,
it
yeah.
is, but I guess Tekken's relevant.
When's Call of Duty getting into Smash? God damn it!
Listen, give me Price with a goddamn machine gun, right? He could be like Snake's foil. Snake's got a box. Price has a fucking claymore. I don't know.
Soap McTavish lathers up.
And then you can spend real money on a thing to dangle on the front of his gun.
You're triggering me so hard right now.
And if you play enough with him, you get a gold version of his weapons.
Right.
If you do his side B enough, you get a gold Type 95.
Yeah. If you get 10 gun butt kills in 3 minutes back to back in 12 matches.
Every time you KO someone, they drop a little dog tag. You have to go pick it up, otherwise your points don't count.
Fun mechanic. You might be onto something
Fun
here.
mechanics.
Yeah. I will say the reason I wasn't like if this had been a Fire Emblem character, I would have just fucking been raging. But I was like, all right, it's a fighting game, whatever. Like it's not for me. But then
I'm glad they put it at the front. That's all I'll say.
It wasn't, and I don't think anyone went into this thinking like, all right, we're getting Goku this time. Like there wasn't any weird hype about it. It was like,
Yeah.
whatever. People learn their fucking lesson as far as this is concerned. But the cutscene was great. It starts off with Kazuya bringing Ganondorf's body up the fucking mountain and throwing him into the pits of hell.
Into a volcano.
Into a fucking
Canonically, it's a
literal
volcano.
volcano. And then later in the cutscene, he's bringing other characters. And so it's just like, it's supposed to show you that the dude's badass, but then it ramps up into kind of a bit where he brings Kirby up and he tosses Kirby off. And then he looks over the edge to make sure Kirby's dead and Kirby floats off in the background behind him. Like, that's just so perfectly Nintendo. That is such a great way to marry the flavor of both of these franchises that couldn't be more different and be like, all right, Kazuya's in Smash Bros. I'm in. He's a demon. I love it.
You know for certain that Sakurai storyboards all these Smash reveals out because he's such a huge goddamn nerd. And he's so passionate for all these characters that he is the one behind the reveals and like what they're doing. So big ups.
After this, we had Life is Strange.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Good for them.
It's a remaster and the fucking waifu version.
Yeah, the new game.
Whatever it is.
Emotional support girl.
True Colors.
No, but this is important though. This is actually really important, and I'm gonna jump a couple games ahead too. That they also announced that the Switch is getting Guardians of the Galaxy day and date.
As
This
a
is
streaming version.
nonetheless though. Nonetheless, that is to me, those two announcements were enormous because that's been my one knock on the Switch is that like it's gonna get a lot of stuff, but it's gonna get it late. So the fact that they're both coming day and date, like. That's cool to me. And I loved Life is Strange, and I'm looking forward. I did not ever play the DLC, so I'm looking forward to being able to pick that back up when that comes out later this year and play through that stuff. So I thought that was a big step for them to get a couple things day and date that got so much attention in the Squeenix presser.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that it's good that they're getting more day and date support. And these games are definitely games that fit on the Switch as far as technical necessity.
Yeah. You know, I've done a lot of bitching on this podcast about Nintendo's business practices, and this might just be the beer talking right now, but like I'm sort of just getting introspective about this whole thing. I'm like, you know what? I mean, it is good that they're getting games day and date. And that there's this sect of Nintendo fans that just so desperately wants Nintendo to compete as the third bastion of like console gaming in the sense that like we are direct competitors, right? It's Sony or Microsoft, right? It's not both. And of course there are fans like us who are like, I just want companies to make good games, and if companies are making good exclusive, that breeds competition, which means we get better games. But Nintendo, you know, goddamn them, they've kind of slotted into this weird thing where it's like, you don't need to have a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch, you need to have something and a Nintendo Switch. So it's like everyone has to own one. Not only because of their own exclusive games, so it's like, all right, it's good that they're getting the games day and date. It's good that they're getting ports of games like Doom or whatever. But like, for guys like us, it obviously doesn't matter. Like, we're not interested in a port of fucking Wolfenstein a year later with all the fucking jaggies, 480p, whatever. Like, we don't care. I'm sure there is a sect of people who do, but like, you know, Anyway, I'm just thinking out loud about it's kind of, it has to be something that they are intentionally doing of like, we're not trying to compete with them. I wish they would. Switch Pro, wink, wink. We didn't get that, which I don't think anyone realistically thought we would after they came out and said, tune in for our software reveals. They were very explicit about it being software related, but.
And Nintendo hasn't revealed hardware at an E3 since 2011 with the Wii U.
They learned their lesson there, let me tell you.
Well, less about learning their lesson because the Wii U was a lot of different lessons, but just they don't. I think they've been focused on games for E3, and that it's a game showcase, and they like to show hardware like at a separate event, or like when they showed the Switch Lite, it was a couple months later. When they showed the SNES Classic or the NES Classic, it was a couple months after E3, and then ready for the holiday. So it's still possible that they do something like that, where they say, hey, September rolls around, check it out, buy this thing in 2 months. Like
Right.
They still can do that. I don't know how likely that is because there's obviously a possibility that their pipeline is completely fucked because of COVID and the microchip shortage in general.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
But it'd be cool if by the fifth anniversary of the Switch, we get a more stronger version of it that we can spend more money on.
I mean, you say that like kind of a bit like we could spend more money on, but it's, I mean, honestly.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
I'm being serious. I'm not bidding.
We've talked about it before. Like the Switch is trying to do something that no console's ever really done and trying to do it on a mass scale. And you have to give Nintendo credit for how successful it's been, but they've also made great games. And that's like so crucial, right? But
Yeah, it's tough to do both.
the console needs to be more powerful. It needs to be. We're at a point where games don't look awesome on it. Like we need a little more juice. We need that anti-aliasing. We need the bump in resolution. As you know, we're at a point you can't even go and buy a 1080p resolution television. You can't anywhere.
I mean, you can, but it has to be sub 40 inches, and people just aren't buying those anymore. It's so cheap to buy a 4K TV. Even if it's a bad 4K TV, it still has the resolution.
But even a good 4K TV, I mean, you can go in and get a really solid 4K TV for $350 at 55 inches or whatever. You're not going to have all the bells and whistles, but it's like, yeah, it's become so affordable as far as, you know, you're not spending $3,000 on a fucking TV worth gaming on, right? You're spending $300.
Yeah.
So
at this point, you're spending more on the hardware to make 4K things happen than you are on the TV to display it.
exactly. So the Switch Pro needs to fucking happen, and I think it will. I mean, it just seems inevitable at this point, and I just so hope that it's not a new Nintendo 3DS situation, and that it is a meaningful upgrade. Like even like I don't even care about the screen resolution on the Switch itself. I like 720 is fine for a screen that small. Like it needs more internal juice, maybe a powered dock. I don't know. It just needs more juice so that games look good on the TV. And I will say, jumping ahead real quick, Breath of the Wild 2. I didn't see a lot of jaggies. I don't know how much of that was like in-game or final footage. Probably none of it.
I think a lot of it was in game, and I don't know about final footage, but I think almost entire. I mean, all their cutscenes in the prior game was in-game engine stuff.
I just mean
So-
like, yeah, it's when it ends up on if it ends up on the regular Switch, it ain't gonna look that crispy. It's gonna be Jag City, bro.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch it on like a VOD version because obviously watching with Twitch or YouTube live streaming compression, it's a little bit more harsh than a playback compression for a VOD. So I want to check that out again.
Even on Twitch live, I was like, oh my goodness. I texted in the group chat. I was like, this is butter, dude. This looks beautiful. And
yeah, it looked really good.
Breath of the Wild did so much with so little, but like that game running on a fucking emulator on PC with the bells and whistles is just like,
Of course.
leagues.
Well, let's hold on a second. Is there anything else from the direct prior to the sequel to Breath of the Wild that we want to talk about before we get into that?
After Life is Strange, we got Super Monkey Ball Remaster confirmed.
Hell yeah, big fan. 1 and 2 are the best ones. They have all the mini games. Let's go, baby. I love those multiplayer mini games from the first two with like monkey bowling, the weird beat 'em up version, the flying one. I mean, all of them are fantastic. I will get this. And it's like $40, so hell yeah.
This seems like one of those games that like we all played and like listen, the post N64 like pre 360 like that weird gap where like I mean obviously the PS2 reigns supreme, but like Nintendo is in such a funny place still trying to figure out.
Sega was in a really funny place after they failed with the
oh
Dreamcast
God.
and started putting all their franchises on like, oh, Xbox is gonna get, Jet Set Radio and
Right.
whatever, and Nintendo gets these and PlayStation gets these, so
Yeah.
they're in a very strange place. And having this as like Super Monkey Ball is a launch title, and now the guy behind Super Monkey Ball is the guy who literally started and is currently still working on the Yakuza series.
It's so weird.
What a turn.
I love this though because this game is reminiscent of this bygone era. Like they don't make games like this. They don't sell games like
huddled
this.
around the TV doing
Right.
weird little mini shits.
Because mobile, right?
Because indie games do this also.
And I think to a lesser extent, I have not seen a game quite like. I mean, I can't even like Super Monkey Ball for me is a game that I buy off of nostalgia. It's a remaster, not a ground up. Like because I think they are trying to sell this based on nostalgia. This is for, like I said,
Totally.
of a bygone era. Like the games like this couldn't come out these days, but because they're capitalizing on the name and the throwback to this, the GameCube was such a wonderful, weird, unique console, and the games that the Nintendo was trying to figure out. Like I feel like all the titles on the GameCube, all the first party titles especially, obviously this not being one of them, but like they were trying to do something different with each of their main titles, right? You have even things like Luigi's Mansion was a launch title, Super Mario Sunshine, like Kirby and I mean, everybody had like a weird. I'm just so nostalgic for it because I'm a fucking old man, and that might not be the best generation in gaming, but it's one I remember fondly, and Super Monkey Ball fits right into that so well. And so I'm like, yeah, this game, like, even the remaster doesn't look that great. I'm like, okay, that's Super Monkey Ball. It kind of looks old, but it's Super fucking Monkey Ball. I can play it on my Switch. I'm gonna fucking buy it. After that, we got something that is either huge and exciting news for a select few of you, or an extremely frustrating thing for people who spent $60 on the last Mario Party game and then received no support for it, which is Mario Party Superstars. Is this a digital only release?
No.
No, is it coming physically? So it's a sequel / kind of remake. It's got a lot of old like N64 era boards and games, right?
Yeah, it's like a best of. They did a best of collection kind of thing on 3DS before Switch came out. It was like Mario Party 100, where it was just the mini games. I don't think it had any of the board action. So this is sort of similar to that, where this has, I believe, 100 mini games as well, and it has 5 boards from prior, the N64 games in particular. They specifically called that out. So I think this is also like another nostalgia grab. I mean, every Nintendo game is a nostalgia grab at some point, but this is like purely trying to get N64 people to get another Mario Party game. And I think it looks pretty good. I mean, if they choose the ones that are fan favorites, like good for them. This isn't a game that I would buy, but it's a game I would play if someone had it and they're like, hey, let's like play some Mario Party, fuck around for a bit.
The problem here for a lot of people who were really, really hyped on Mario Party a couple years ago, and my brother being one of them, him and his buddies got super into the Mario Party game when they were playing it together in person. Once upon a time when you could do that. And the lack of multiplayer support, or the lack of online multiplayer support, the lack of DLC, left a lot of people who spent full price on a Mario Party game that was widely considered probably the worst Mario Party game.
Nobody did.
I would.
There were much worse ones on Wii U and Wii.
Wait, there were Wii U Mario Parties?
Yeah.
I like the Wii U one.
They got up to 10 before they did Super Mario Party.
Interesting. I didn't know there was one on the Wii U. It was a lackluster entry. It was like, all right, there's not a lot to do.
Yeah, content light.
Right. And people thought, of course, Nintendo's going to support this down the road. We're going to get DLC and hopefully free DLC. Who knows? But instead, they just released another game that they'll probably sell at $40, if not full $60.
60.
And listen, this looks like to be the promise that the last Mario Party failed to deliver on, which is cool if you're into Mario Party. I'm not one of those people, but I can't help but feel like I'd be a little upset if I got left high and dry on that last $60 purchase and they're just trying to sell me a new one instead of supporting the game that they, rolled out as a featured fucking Switch release, But I mean, as far as Mario Party goes, great. It's got the thing that they made sure to touch on is all games have multiplayer, online multiplayer rather. So, I didn't play any Mario Party literally at all growing up. Like, I have no history with Mario Party. So, I don't know. Chris, do you have, like, was this one of the games that was, like, the marquee fucking multiplayer title in your house next to Smash Bros. Or whatever growing up?
I don't think we ever owned it, but like we have friends who did, like probably the same friends who had the original Smash Bros. And like we'd go over and that would be like the shit. This is the laziest fucking thing I've ever seen Nintendo fart out since like probably the 3D All-Star Collection, which was like airbrushed, functionally untouched versions of games. But they didn't even go that far. They literally are just like, we're going to give you 5 maps from the 64 games and 100 of the mini games from the 64 games. Give me all the 64 games on one cartridge, you fucks. Like, it's literally that easy. Like, just do it. Just fucking do it. You know you can do it. Or give us like a proper Mario Party 2 remaster. Like, update the whole fucking thing. Give us a proper like Mario Party collection if you don't want to go as far as a remaster. But like 5 maps, whoop-de-fucking-do, 5 maps, 100 mini games from like what, the 5 games? 5 games that were on 64?
I thought there was only like 3. Is there maybe 4?
I think there was 3.
Not sure.
Did 4 make the jump to GameCube? That's sounding right.
I think 4.
Yeah.
I think 4 might have been the first game. I'm totally like divorced. I do not know the Mario Party.
Yeah, I think it's 3.
Oeuvre.
Okay, yeah, that's sounding right. But I just was like, are you fucking kidding me? This is so lazy. Fuck you. I'm not buying this. Like, especially because, like you said, I played Super Mario Party. I didn't buy it, thank God. I played it like right after launch and went, oh my God, is this it? And like already so many of the mini game things are filled in. And like we're going look at them, we're like, surely there's more, and we're just like not getting the right criteria. So we go to the master list, and we're like, oh no, this is just as big as this game is. And I was like, if this drops to $20, I'll buy it. And it's never going to. It's never going to drop to $20. But so it's just so lazy. That pissed me off probably more than anything else in this presentation.
I mean, there's some good points you make. It's funny that this has got you so salty. But hey, for once, we got a Nintendo Direct that like there really wasn't anything to be that mad about. This was a really solid Direct, and it's something that I want to point out before we move on here is that like Nick, you had texted me, or you maybe in the group chat, you said how great this Direct was, and I was like, I was quick to point out. I want to say that this is what all Nintendo Direct should be. This wasn't like they're shadow dropping Breath of the Wild 2 next month. This just seemed like a lot of really solid little things, a little bit for everybody.
I think it's absurd to have that as an expectation.
Well, I mean, this is how bad so many of these conferences have been. And in the last few, our expectations have fallen for these, and our reaction to them have gotten softer and softer because we sort of have been conditioned to expect mediocrity, I guess. And so when we get something that's just really fucking solid, this was just a really nice presentation. Everyone's like, this was the best E3 in a decade! And it's like, it was really good, man. It was solid. But like, let's cool our jets.
No, I think it was really good, but like Chris was saying, it's the best one since 2017, and that's just because the stars aligned, and that's when game software is coming out in the foreseeable future. I mean, you can't like organize development teams to be like, okay, you have a 4-year cycle, you have a 4-year cycle, you have a 4-year cycle. Let's knock these out so every quarter we get something big. Like that's not how game development works or has ever worked. So if you like get lucky as Nintendo to say, hey, we actually have like 3 or 4 cool new things that is going to hit for a wide swath of an audience, and we can show it all during summer because it's all going to happen in the next year and a half. Like, good on Nintendo for getting lucky and having that happen for this year. But I think as consumers and we as Nintendo fans and as video game fans in general, we can't have that expectation that every show should be knocking our socks off, because it's not going to happen. Every Nintendo Direct has had like a really good presentation, and that's what we can judge them on, is how long they're spending on each of these things and what is the tone and like how is everything organized. I think we can have expectations in that front, but Nintendo always surpasses our expectations when it comes to the organization. Just look at every other Nintendo or every other E3 presentation that happened this week from developers that had no business showing anything. They should have just skipped it. You get Square Enix, and like the pacing of that show was awful. You said they spent 20 minutes on Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they shit out 6 other games that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
And that's not even counting like watching something from Ubisoft or from Koch Media where they just had developer interviews and didn't show an ounce of gameplay for 45 minutes, or fucking Gearbox where they have Randy Pitchford yucking it up with Kevin James or whatever that the short actor's name is, who's in the next Borderlands movie. Like, no one cares, right? So Nintendo is actually doing it right, and everyone else is kind of struggling. And Microsoft did a good job because they can throw $7 billion at fucking Bethesda, just buy up every game and actually show cool games and show not even really actually anything from Starfield, but everyone's freaking out about that for no goddamn reason because everyone's an idiot.
Everyone's an idiot.
So it's just about showing stuff. And
Everyone's an
Nintendo just got
idiot.
lucky this year as far as having the stuff to show.
I think you've drank the Kool-Aid a little bit, my friend.
What Kool-Aid? What are you fucking talking about? Why are you so bitter about nothing?
No. Nick is 100% right. I will go to the mattress on this one. That you want to know how I know that Nick is right? Because every other fucking company has tried to rip off the Nintendo Direct model, and they still do a fucking terrible job. Every
Have
other
you watched
fucking
a
company.
Sony thing?
Yeah, Sony State of Play, Microsoft whatever the fuck, like Indie Direct, like Wholesome Direct, like literally everyone has ripped off their fucking model because it fucking works. It's charming, it's engaging. Like Nick said, the presentation is it's butter, baby. Like you said about Breath of the Wild 2, their presentation's butter. They got the do and the little title card. Like it works. It works. Even if it's not always excellent games in the Direct, that presentation is superior to the traditional press conference. And I listened to enough like god awful pressers this year to know that that's true.
You're right. The format is inherently better than like some fucking douchebag white guy up on stage
Wearing a blazer over a t-shirt
Yeah,
with
over
a
a
game logo on it.
Chris is doing a great impression right now. You're right. The Direct is just a better way of presenting things. That's, I think, undisputed. But I'm gonna have to pull clips from our last fucking podcast about the last Direct that we just did a few months ago.
It was bad.
We were ripping on it because it was just a bunch of like shitty kids games and fucking mobile titles, and it was so bad and so poorly paced. And so it's like when Nintendo does a solid 8 out of 10, this was an 8 out of 10 presentation. It wasn't an 11, it was an 8 out of 10, and that's awesome. That's great for Nintendo, who usually finds a way to fucking take something great and fuck it up.
I'm baffled because I don't know what your metric is. Because for me, this Direct was like a 10 out of 10. Because I'm basing it off of prior Directs. I don't know what your what's the scale?
You're great on the curve
what's the
here.
scale?
Yeah.
So what's the next? Okay, what do they show at the next Direct that's gonna give you a 10 out of 10 reaction?
Oh, that's a big question.
Okay, what's a good length for a Direct? Like 30 minutes?
Like
about,
30 minutes. Today
roughly?
was 40. Today
Okay,
it was a little long, but yeah.
How many games is that? What are the games that they show? And what's dragging this one down for everybody? Like I just don't know like what you want. It doesn't make sense to me. Something you were talking about in the group chat was you wanted them to show Wind Waker coming to Switch. Like for you, that would be a cool thing. For 90% of the audience, that's like another Wii U port. That's a cool thing, but it's not like a great thing. That's a great thing for you. And even then, even if they showed Wind Waker and Twilight Princess coming to Switch, you would be bitching because you'd be like, oh, I have to fucking buy this again?
I wouldn't be bitching.
You'd be like, I would love to play this again. I want to play this
wouldn't
again. This is going to be great. I'm super stoked. But you'd be whining about,
No, I wouldn't.
All they had for Zelda 35th anniversary is a bunch of old games.
Give me some fucking credit here. All I've been wanting is Wind Waker. I bought every Wii U port they fucking put on this thing. I wouldn't be complaining about buying it again. I want to play it on a
complained
fucking...
about buying 3D World again.
Well, after playing
It's
it
too
again, I was
fast.
especially... Yeah, too fast. But
Which
like...
it is, but I agree. But
I want to point out that The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, is probably the most revered Zelda game.
no.
The old heads talk about Ocarina of Time being this game changer, but like, as our generation
Breath of
grew
the
up,
Wild or Ocarina of Time.
Breath of the Wild is obviously the new contender. Dude, Wind Waker is like low-key everybody's fucking favorite game, and people hated it for so fucking long. It's not yours,
No.
and it's not Chris's.
No.
Chris is gonna fucking argue this.
No, it's shitty. It's fucking terrible. It's fucking
Nope.
terrible. Oh my god,
no,
EJ.
oh my god!
How do you do that?
Chris?
How do you get me into this fucking argument every podcast? Like, Wind Waker sucks.
Every poll I fucking see from anybody in the gaming sphere about these fucking games, Wind Waker is the fan fucking favorite. It was charming. It was accessible. It holds up as far as like just being a quirky, easy, fun
No,
adventure.
it doesn't.
Show me the receipts on that, EJ. I would love to see that.
Insert audio here.
Are you gonna go to windwaker.net and look at the poll on that website to see what's everyone's favorite Zelda
I'm gonna
game?
Google is Wind Waker everyone's favorite Zelda game, and I'm gonna hit you with the first link. I'm all about that confirmation bias.
I'll go to GameFAQs Visa or via 2002 when that game was revealed and show you all the people complaining about Zelda.
Oh, I know. I remember all that. People fucking hated it at first, but it came around so quickly. As people complain about it like being too easy, as if Zelda games have ever been hard and not just fucking arcane and obnoxious. Like, I guess if you want to be like, that makes a good game because I don't know what's happening and I'm fucking frustrated.
I think the pacing was a nightmare in that game, but it is really cute, and I think mechanically it works pretty well. And for the time, I think it was a really cool way to do a quote unquote open world. But I mean, people love it because the way it looks and because they have nostalgia for the flutes and shit in the game music. But beyond that, I don't think it's anyone's most cherished Zelda game unless like you're just trying to be like contrarian.
I think there's a whole generation of people that you're discrediting right now who grew up with Zelda and Wind Waker was the thing for them that said, oh, I get Zelda now. Because, I mean, and the original game had some issues, obviously, that the new one corrected.
I just think if you took every Zelda fan and asked them what their favorite Zelda game, that Wind Waker would be a lot of people's favorite Zelda game. That's not false, but it is not the majority. And I don't think it's anywhere close to the majority. I think it's probably fourth as far as people's favorite Zelda game on like the most of those votes. I think it would go probably Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past. Those three are interchangeable in any order.
Breath of the Wild is the objectively best Zelda game, I think by default because it is the most modern. It has so many issues. Listen, I've played every Zelda game, every 3D Zelda game, and most of the 2D Zelda games. I don't like Zelda. And that's just
fine.
me. That's just me.
That's fair.
And so for a game like Wind Waker to stick out, maybe I am over sort of conflating its fucking cultural value, I guess. I don't know.
Nintendo liked Wind Waker enough to make a sequel to it. Two sequels, I think.
Sequels.
Was Spirit Tracks also a sequel? Like,
yeah.
That is unheard of in the Zelda like timeline as well. Like they do not really tend to do sequels to these games. So the fact that they did two for fucking Wind Waker, like obviously people at Nintendo loved it enough there too. And I think it would be cool if they returned to that you know, side franchise in the Zelda series to do like another Wind Waker style game, because I think there's so much they can do now that they either weren't able or weren't willing to in that game. Like being on the water, you were so limited. For a game that's 90% water, what you can do in the water is almost nothing. Link can't fucking swim, for God's sake. He dies in like 10 seconds in the fucking water.
Yeah.
Absurd. There's no iron boots or anything to do. I don't know. That was like a missed opportunity in my opinion, but I think it'd be cool if they return to that art style and that like gameplay. They could do like a core, you know, a classic kind of dungeon-based Zelda game if they went to that art style. I think that would be actually really cool.
I'd be really happy with that. And dude, I know I'm biased because this hit me at just the right time and the atmosphere of that game and the music of that game.
Yeah, you played on that silver game. It was the silver GameCube or was the black one?
It was the silver one.
On the rack in your silver
Oh,
TV.
yeah.
You're all silvered out, bud.
Come on, man. I was fucking shining, baby.
Playing that game super late, too. You're playing that like 2006, and you're just like, wow, I get it.
I initially played it in middle school, closer when it came out. But then I had traded my GameCube for a Nintendo DS sometime in middle school. And then
probably like 0405 when that first came out, or was the DS Lite?
It was the original DS that I traded my GameCube for.
Okay, the fatty DS. Then it was probably 0405
Yeah.
in that range because the Lite came out in 05 or 06, I believe. 05, it was before the Wii. It was like that design aesthetic going into the Wii. It was like either early 2006 or like late 2005.
And then in like 07, my buddy's brother stole a bunch of DVDs and CDs from like that I had let him borrow. He stole them and like sold them for drug money or some fucking shit, right? So my buddy, being a good friend, made it up to me by giving me his GameCube. Of course, I had gotten rid of mine 2 or 3 years prior. He gave me his GameCube to make up for the the lost value of the stuff his brother stole, with like the Zelda collection that had like all the 3D games and Wind Waker,
Quest.
the Master Quest. And so I was my like into my freshman, early my sophomore year that I was like getting back into those games. And so anyway, I would be all in on a sequel to these games, and maybe I'm obviously biased, but like I've played all these games and I played a lot of them sort of contemporarily, right? Like it wasn't necessarily I'm just going back and trying to play this game. It's something that has never really sat with me. And I guess there's an argument to be made that like you play Zelda games for like different reasons. Probably explains why I'm so lukewarm. Not the word I'd use for Breath of the Wild. Like I quite enjoyed Breath of the Wild, but again, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. That was a good game.
I'm sure when you got to the Rito Village and you heard the different variations of that theme, the Dragon Roost Island theme song, I'm sure that hit you in a little bit, right?
The moment that really, really fucking got me? Because I remember the night I started the game. I was at my parents' house, and we had been hanging out.
You started after we all left from playing Bomberman and 1-2 Switch and being a little bit...
Yep. We were like, all right,
okay,
this is the Switch. I guess we got Zelda to go back to. So I went in, and I booted it up, and lights are all off. I'm just on the handheld. I'm booting it up, and I'm just trying to take in the Switch experience. And I remember just like playing for the first 2 hours of it and being like, I want to be into this way more than I am right now, right? And hearing you guys talk about it, I tried to give it the old college try a few more times. And it wasn't until I decided to fuck the story. I'm just gonna go look around, see what I can find. And I climbed to this fucking peak of this mountain, and there's this purple dragon up there. And I jump off the mountain, and I'm trying to land on this fucking sea serpent that's flying around. I'm trying to land on him from the top of the highest mountain I could find. And I just remember being like, holy shit, this is crazy.
Yeah, that encounter is super cool. I love the Hebrew mountain and the corrupted dragon that you find up there.
Yep. That's exactly it.
I think the dragon moment for a lot of people in Breath of the Wild was like a huge, like, whoa kind of moment for... I mean, it was for me, especially because like the first thing I did when I got off of the plateau, like it's getting off the plateau and being like, wow, this place is really big. And there's like a lot of things going on here. There's a desert, there's a mountains, there's this jungle. I went to the jungle. So I found the dragon in the jungle area climbing up a waterfall and like going into the lake at the top. And like, I was like, I did not know this was in the game. And all the lightning is happening around it. And I have to like take off my metal equipment because I'm going to get zapped by a goddamn lightning bolt.
Right. You know what's funny about that is, like, I had already gone into this fucking game with these expectations of like, well, I'm going to be disappointed because I'm always disappointed. I'm a cynic. I want to like things more, but I just don't. And I want to feel those things. I don't want it to be manufactured. I don't want it to be an obligation. I want to actually fucking like and enjoy things. And so I was already kind of resigned. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, it was another one of those things of like, depression strikes again. Like, another fun thing robbed. And so when I got to that moment with the fucking dragon, it was like this genuine moment, which is why it sticks out to me, because it was like unprompted. Like, it was just such a natural thing. And I was like, holy shit, okay, I'm in on this game. And I'll always remember that fondly. And I like that game quite a lot. But anyway, we're fucking off the rails. All that to say, I would be curious. Listen, if you're listening to this podcast right now, I want to know your thoughts on Wind Waker. All right? What's our email, Nick? Where can they hit our line, bro?
They can go to feedback@consolecrusade.com or email at consolecrusade.com, whichever floats your boat. Feedback. I like feedback. I think that's a better email address, personally.
Give us your feedback if you listen to this right now, because I want to know. I want to get the people's opinion. All right? Andrew Chavez, Leaf Jaden, talk to us. Another game that got a sequel, motherfucking WarioWare. About time.
Yes.
Let's go. Those games are so stupid and fun. I was thinking like,
love them.
I was like, what's the title going to be? We were like, WarioWare Switched, WarioWare Detached, or something to do with Joy-Con.
Detached would be really good. That's a good name.
And then it's like, keep it together. I was like,
get it together.
It doesn't make any sense, and I love it. It's perfect.
The multiplayer focus makes a little bit of sense. I want to know what the control is like, because they did not show. It looked kind of motion control-y, and I hope it's not all motion controls.
Please don't do that to me. Please don't.
Because they did that with the Wii one was really good with the motion controls. That was a lot of fun as like a party game sort of scenario, passing the controller and having to hold it in different ways. And that was really cool. I loved that game, actually. But my heart is stuck with WarioWare Touched.
Oh.
I think that is my favorite WarioWare game.
So much
Twisted
fun.
is cool. It didn't work as well as you wanted it to most of the time. And then I haven't really spent too much time, in a long time actually, with the Micro Mini Games original version. But that was a really good version too. WarioWare is just like an unsung hero in the Nintendo sort of catalog. Big fan. Ready for this one. Seeing Wario squeeze out a tube of toothpaste or plucking armpit hairs. Like, let's go, baby.
Here's the thing though, is it's another one of those games that, like, in this era of AAA experiences, like, can WarioWare just exist as this $60 possibly title?
$50 title,
50?
They confirmed, yeah.
Even then, like, a $50 title.
Only on Nintendo, baby.
Well, that's the thing is, again, the fucking dorks like us who are like, yes, WarioWare. But even like WarioWare Touch, I go back and play and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. That's cute. But like, I don't give a fuck. But I'm like, new WarioWare, let's go. I'm gonna spend $50 on it. I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna be disappointed by it because I'm a 30-year-old man. And that's, I guess, what Nintendo's kind of banking on. Because again, and this is one of those things that like, you can look at it as a negative thing. And I think in the long run, it's probably a positive thing. Where like the mobile game space, like they do this, right? The fucking Fruit Ninja and the what, whatever, like the chintzy little fucking mobile games that you play with your fingers. That's where those games moved. So Nintendo doesn't have to do that. These companies don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, not in it's the collection of them. It's how everything is really weird, and that's like the whole point of all the games is them being a bunch of weird games. You're not gonna get a game like this on mobile because the price model is not there for mobile. You're not selling games at full price. You're selling ads or microtransactions, and you're hoping for whales to make your business make sense. So it's not like it is, but it also isn't. And if Nintendo made a WarioWare game, like a real WarioWare game, and put it on mobile, it would be really cool, but it wouldn't make them any money. I mean, they tried Mario Run. They tried to make an actual Mario game on mobile, and like it was cool, but it wasn't $10 on a phone cool, right? Like if that game was $10 on Switch, it would sell. Like a one-button Mario game. But also, would they make a one-button Mario game on Switch and sell it for $10? I don't think so. So I think mobile and Nintendo is like a strange sort of interactions to begin with. And just like a mini game collection is really cool. And like I would see this as like hey, we're 10 like quote unquote well-known indie developers, and we're making a mini game collection and selling it on Steam or whatever for $20. Like that is what this game would be if it wasn't Nintendo, right? And even then, it wouldn't be, I don't know if it would be successful. Like, what does success in that context really mean? I mean, there's that game collection, literally, it was a UFO 100 that is not like micro mini games like WarioWare, but it is like smaller sort of games, and it's a collection of them from indie developers. And that game was talked about 2018 or something like that, and it hasn't ever come out because it's indie developers and they can't get games out in like a short amount of time because they're just doing it in their basement on their free time. So I don't know. I'm stoked for WarioWare though.
Yeah. No, again, it's Nintendo preying on all the old heads with the nostalgia for this sort of thing. I was playing this in 7th grade on the bus to school, right? Where you didn't have a cell phone.
I mean, everything is nostalgia if you're around for 300 years, right? And so WarioWare was a new game at one point, and it just was successful, so they just keep making it slowly but surely. Also, I'm glad it's not a create your own game like the last two ones were. 3DS and Wii U was a little bit disappointing as far as WarioWare games go.
Absolutely. If Nintendo existed in this landscape that they were like strictly trying to sell to a new generation of gamers, like the which I don't know what sort of hypothetical scenario is that, I guess, like that doesn't exist. But like a lot of companies are looking forward to like what are the kids into? That's our market, right? And Nintendo is like, in a lot of ways, they didn't just stick with like, well, we're selling games to 10-year-olds. Like Pokemon Company hasn't figured this out. But Nintendo, in a lot of ways, has it. They are selling games to 40-year-olds, and they somehow make it work to where old ass dorks who have this desire to connect with something from their childhood, they're able to do so. But also, they're making games that my 12-year-old brother gives a shit about. After WarioWare, we got Shin Megami Tensei 5, which I only give a shit about because I picked this, I think, 3rd in our Fantasy Critic draft, and I really need this to come through clutch as like a 89-90 to even make it worth it here. Zero thoughts on this whatsoever. I don't know. Chris, are you a Shin Megami Tensei fan whatsoever?
I am not, but just looking at the gameplay for that, I think that's going to be 10 or less for you, bud.
I think so. I think so too.
Rough.
That was my thought. And, my thought going into it was like, again, the JRPG fucking dorks like are going to save me on this. But then I saw how Bravely 2 did, and I said, ooh, man, maybe after seeing this trailer, I'm like, maybe Shin Megami Tensei gets dropped.
Bravely 2 is not nearly on the same level as a mainline Shin Megami Tensei game.
This is true. But that also means more expectations. And if Chris has taught me anything, it's that expectations only leads to disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, and I think that there is the distinct possibility of that happening. But I also think that the only people that are willing to put the 80, 90 hours into reviewing this game are the people who would be fans of the series, have played a Shin Megami Tensei game before, or played a Persona game before. And I think that gives it better chance of it succeeding for you personally in this fake game that we play.
Yeah.
I'm interested in checking it out. I wanna read some reviews, and I want to see if this game is for me.
Is this going to be your once a year like Christmas break JRPG?
I don't know. I mean, I have other JRPGs in the
The Vault.
the lineup in the vault. Yes, definitely, I've got vaulted JRPGs, but it could be. Depends on if I put off Monster Hunter stories or whatever. But
We're gonna skip a couple of no-name little things here. Fatal Frame.
ports,
Okay.
Wii U game,
Danganronpa. Great. Doom Eternal DLC came out today.
whatever.
Strange Brigade.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, EG's game of the year last year.
I at one point probably was like, if this comes to the Switch, let's fucking go. But like, I don't care at this point. I played so much of that game. I don't necessarily need to buy it again to play it. If I want to play it as a pick up and go thing just for fun occasionally, I'll do it on the PlayStation. I'm not spending full price on this game again because I played it so
Sure.
much. I got way more
I think
value.
it's good that it's not going to be full price. It's $40. So that's good that Activision is actually one of the only ones that are willing to port their games onto Switch and then lower the price from the original. They did the same thing with Crash Bandicoot 4.
I'm pretty sure Tony Hawk was a $40 game anyway, even on PlayStation, Xbox, right?
Maybe I'm not sure, but that sounds right. But just putting it on Switch, you usually expect it to be a $60 game because they
Yeah.
want to squeeze Nintendo fans.
Well, plus the cost of producing cartridges is more expensive
Yeah,
than disc.
yeah.
Anyway,
You're right.
after all this, we got something that I was actually kind of excited about until I saw the gameplay, which was Advance Wars.
Yeah. I was so hype, and then it looks so dumb.
It
The
looks
whole
like a shitty mobile game.
it should have been pixel art.
It doesn't look super bad. It looks a little cheap, and I agree with you there. I don't think it looks terrible. I think that if they did pixel art, it would look a lot better. I think it would be a lot more expensive to make. It is way forward making this too, and they are like pixel art masters. And they announced at some point during this past like E3 week, they announced a sequel to River City Girls, which was an awesome pixel art game. So it could have happened. And what you want to know what's really funny is that this game is $60.
Oh my gosh. You're getting two 20-year-old Game Boy Advance games remade to look like a fucking awful, cheap mobile title. And the gameplay is going to be the gameplay. Like, they're going to have to try pretty hard to fuck that up. Like, these games are critically acclaimed here.
It's not going to bring back the franchise, that's for sure.
No, and that's
unfortunate.
That's disappointing. When I saw you texted it right away. We're like, oh shit, we knew. Like, it's going down. Twitter blew up about it. It was a bummer. I mean, if you're gonna go 3D, I think that's fine, but like, it just looks so cheap, and
It looks a little flat.
yeah,
Like with the Pokemon remakes this year.
absolutely.
The shading is a little bit weak. The lighting is very bright. Like disturbingly so.
It's just quick and glossy and just like
It's not very appealing looking.
No,
it's not very
no,
appealing
it's just
looking.
not-
And I don't know if that's like an art direction choice or if that's just I don't know why. It's not my favorite. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna be getting this game. I could be totally wrong. I could be an asshole and buy it because I'm an idiot, but I don't know if I'm gonna buy this one.
Not at
It could,
$60.
Which is sad because I should be like, yes, I want this, give it to me right now, but I'm
40.
hesitant because of how cheap it looks.
I go 40.
40 would be good.
40 would be better. I mean, Chris, did you play a lot of Advance Wars?
No, but Josh and Joey loved it, and so I was really excited when it seemed clear that this is Advance Wars, that this is going to be my chance to like play these games that are so beloved to my brothers. And I went, oh my god, I'm not fucking playing that.
Yeah. Which is so. Here's the thing. And I want to point this out, not to be a dickhead here, but I just want to illustrate a point here. Nick, is how many times you've said graphics don't matter in a game. Gameplay matters.
It's not that graphics don't matter, it's that they don't matter as much as gameplay.
The graphics are how you interface with everything about the game. And if the game doesn't look appealing,
And for a remake, I think it does matter in the context of why is this $60 versus how much would they charge for a package of the first two Game Boy Advance games when that's the only difference. If this is the same game, same combat, same mechanical, like the way you control the game, then why am I paying $60 for these two games? Is it because they gave it a graphical pass? it looks like that's the reasoning.
And the fact that it looks as awful as it does, it's like, well, I'm just, if I want to play Advance Wars, I just go fucking download a ROM at this point. You know what I mean?
I'll say it again. I don't think it looks awful. It just looks cheap, and it doesn't look worth $60. And it wouldn't be my first choice in the options.
Yeah, agree.
Totally.
Like if they did a pixel art remake, I think it'd be a lot cooler. But I don't know if people will be more willing to spend $60 on a pixel art remake of these two games either. I think just the fact that they're doing two Game Boy Advance games for $60 that are not named Zelda. Because if they did this with like Minish Cap and if it looked like Link's Awakening, then I would probably fork over $60 for that because I'm an idiot. But right? So I think Advance Wars, it doesn't have the cachet to be brought back with $60. They should be asking us to accept Advance Wars into our hearts.
Right.
Expecting us to fork over, full price for these two games.
This is what's such a bummer about, at the end of the day, Nintendo being run by a bunch of dicks in fucking suits and ties who have no worry or care or connection to video games, right? It's a bunch of rich dudes trying to see how they can get richer. And the fact that like they could have done Advance Wars justice by first rolling out Game Boy ports in a virtual fucking console library and then doing a proper sequel that actually looks like it belongs in the Advance Wars franchise. But Nintendo as a business entity would rather show up, sell 200,000 units at $60 a pop, then sell however many at $10 a pop just to port it. Like they would rather do that because this game wasn't that difficult to make. It didn't cost them that much to do.
No, yeah, this is a very risk-averse sort of move. It's the tried and true games in a franchise that is liked but not loved. And Intelligent Systems is not willing to go back to it. They don't want to put the budget back into it because it was risky enough for them to even try doing Fire Emblem as big as they did in 3DS, and they found huge success with it. They just want to stick to that because that's like the only thing keeping that company afloat. It is cool though. I like the idea of, relevant independent developers from the West developing a game in a franchise. I mean, it's a remake. It's not really that much of them making a new thing, but it is Way Forward, who has worked with large Japanese companies before to bring back franchises for them. They did Bionic Commando for Capcom on the DS however many years ago, and they're bringing back River City for Arc System Works and like those old sort of games. So it's cool that Nintendo is letting a third party developer make a real game, even if it is a remake. Like I think it's hopeful for the future. But the product that they're actually making is less interesting to me than that fact.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit sad that I'm more interested in Way Forward making a game for Nintendo than I am for the game that they're actually making.
The internet loved this. People on Twitter were very happy to see Advance Wars back. It's one of those beloved franchises that
yeah.
I mean, there's so many franchises that came exclusively to Nintendo that the public perception has grown into this frenzy. They've overconflated this as being like a fucking pillar of Nintendo's lineup, I guess. And time does that, right? That's just the nature of I mean, the further we get away from these things.
I would put Metroid as teetering at the top of that echelon
yes.
into relevancy. But yeah, Advance Wars is definitely pretty low on that totem pole. I'd put it down there with F-Zero and Kid Icarus as far as
Kid Icarus is on the bottom. Next to Ice Climbers, okay?
Ice Climbers is at the bottom. That's sad. Come on, there's one Ice Climbers game and it's bad.
It's bad. Oh,
but
man.
at least with the Wars games, I mean, they started on Famicom. They were around for a long time. There was Game Boy versions. Game Boy Advance is the first time they brought them over to the West, and there was a few of those there. And then a really mediocrely received game or DS game. So it went the way of Golden Sun and just got the boot. Just sad.
Yeah. Man, that is interesting to think about. That Golden Sun, what was that? Radiant Dawn?
No. Radiant Dawn was Fire Emblem.
That's Fire Emblem.
Golden Sun 2 Lost Age, and then the third one was a Dark Dawn, I think it was
Dark. I knew it was something like that. Okay, I'm not totally crazy.
Dark is the opposite of Radiant.
Yeah, God damn it, you're right. Radiant Dawn was Fire Emblem. Well, of course I retained that bit of information. Dark Dawn, gloomy dusk in the morning. I don't know. That's dumb. Anyway, after all this nonsense, we got some hardware reveal. Finally, we've been waiting on a fucking Nintendo hardware reveal for how long?
Well, it was the Zelda, finale.
Oh, it was the Zelda finale.
Yeah, we get the Zelda finale with reveal of some DLC for Hyrule Warriors, which is like, okay, whatever. And then Eiji Onuma being very sorry that Breath of the Wild 2 isn't coming out this year and showing off the cute little Zelda handheld, which I'll probably get because I like Zelda more than I like Mario, even though Mario games in general are better. I just have more fondness in my heart for Zelda, and it has Link's Awakening on it, so of course I'm going to get it.
That's the thing. My collector brain, when I saw this, I went ding, 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 ding. And I was like, wait, I don't give a fuck because I don't collect things anymore. I don't give a fuck about those games. And I certainly wouldn't pay real life money for a piece of hardware that only plays those games that I can play in a million other places. But my heart immediately went out to Chris, who I thought, oh, Chris must love this. Chris has got to be the first on the month to buy this.
Gimme. I want that on my shelf.
Do you have the other Game & Watch that they released?
Oh yeah, totally. I went out day one. I didn't pre-order it, but I went out day one and bought it. Yeah.
They're still available. Shout out to Nintendo for keeping availability up for those things.
Have they kept availability for it, or did they overestimate how many people would give a fuck about them?
They never overestimate.
No, it's the second. I guarantee you it's the second. Like the dudes at Target, I went to go pick one up. They didn't even have a spot for it on the shelf because no one was asking for it day one. I think I literally bought the first copy. I was like, are there any left? And he's like, bro, no one has bought this today.
Wow.
I was like no one had bought it.
Obviously being anecdotal, but like this is not the NES Classic, right? Which was with both scarce and sort of cashing.
There's no
at the right
earthly
time.
reason why the NES Classic sold out as hard as it did. Demand on that was really unexpectedly high, in my opinion.
I fully anticipated that being something that everybody would want and that you couldn't find anywhere, because that's just how everything is when you're a collector.
When you're a collector, you definitely overvalue your collection.
This is true. That was until I sold it, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was sitting on this much cash the whole time. Thank God I sold the thing.
Imagine if you waited until this year to sell all your stuff.
I thought about that because I saw it even when I was selling things last summer. It was last June, July that I was really going hard on eBay. I was shocked at like how the pandemic and people being stuck at home and not having things to do, how that affect. I sold my collection for at least twice what I thought I would. And it's funny because I kept most of the expensive things,
Right.
So anyway, things have obviously gone up more since then, since a year ago, I guess. But
I'm just thinking as far as like my collection of Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, I think, oh man, I spent a lot of money on Fusion. I spent like $35 on that game. And that was a lot for it back when I bought it. But now I look on eBay and it's regularly going for $100. It's like,
that's the thing.
That tripled.
Dude, when I was collecting heavy, my rule was like, if I spend less on this game than a AAA game would cost in 2015 or 2016 or whatever, like it's a win based on how prices were trending. And a lot of those games that I bought for 30, 40, $50, and you think, oh my God, I spent an arm and a leg on this retro game. Yeah, exactly. You go and like, oh, Chrono Trigger's a $210 game now. Don't regret spending $45 on it, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's great. And we all knew this was coming, where like the Game Boy Advance kind of parlaying into the DS, the GameCube era. GameCube really fucking took off in the last 18 months.
Especially like JRPGs, stuff like Tales, stuff like the Fire Emblem games, I think are over 200 now, I think.
Oh man. Yeah, you know what? That's the one thing I don't have any longer is the GameCube.
I think the
games.
Wii one. There was some of those RPGs on Wii that were like GameStop exclusive, or people had to sign petitions to get them ported to the West, like Xenoblade, that I think their value has gone high.
Xenoblade was an absurdly expensive game because it came out so late and it was a GameStop exclusive. But at some point in the last couple of years, they like released new stock and it was like available on Amazon. And now it's like
Weird.
Dirt cheap. Yeah, it was because I only sold my copy for like $30. It wasn't worth anything.
You don't think the Switch HD remaster contributed to that at all? Like people trying to like dip and just trying to sell their copies because they were only holding on to it because it was the only legit way to play it.
When did it get
like a better way to play?
When did it get announced?
I think it got announced because it came out last spring. I think it got announced September-ish of 2019.
Okay, yeah. No, then yeah, I guess that may have had something to do with it. But you don't normally see that. when games like that get announced. You actually see the opposite.
No, yeah,
a lot of times.
everyone's like, oh yeah, now that we can play it somewhere else, it's going to be way cheaper. But no, it's usually it drives demand, it drives
right.
interest. In
Exactly. You the prices end up going up after announcements like that, and sometimes on totally ridiculous games, like seeing the Crash Bandicoot games go up in price after those announcements several years ago. And it's always funny too when you see like when the mainstream market gets in on the collector's market because the collectors inherently value things that are scarce, right? We don't value things based on how good they are.
Right. And then the normies are like, I remember playing this when I was a kid, which was the ones that everyone had.
Right. And so the things that you suddenly you're like Earthbound is an extremely expensive game, not because it's necessarily any better than any other RPG.
Or remembered. It's remembered because of Smash Bros. Nobody
Right.
played that game when it came out.
Right.
Nobody bought it.
Well, that's why it's so expensive. It has been. It's even more expensive now. But for years, that was sort of the grail because they only fucking sold like 100 and
Yeah, it's like 200,000 copies were sold in America.
I'm never selling my copy of Earthbound. I'm never
Never
selling
do
my
it.
copy of Earthbound. It's like I literally bought it in a box of garage sale games when I was in college. I took a look into the box.
Yep.
It had a Super Nintendo
damn,
body
dude.
and like a dozen games.
They come
And-
with the manual.
No, it's just cart. So I started sifting through and I'm like, I think this is worth a lot of money. It was like $30 for the box. And it had
Yeah.
Super Punch Out, it had F-Zero, it had
Damn,
Earthbound.
dog. That shit.
Yeah, and I
That's tight.
never selling that thing.
there are certain items that will always sort of ebb and flow with like the mainstream. And like right now, GameCube games are so expensive, but those are going to drop again. A lot of them are anyway. Like Super Smash Bros. Melee is not going to be a fucking $100 game in 3 years. It's going to fall back to the $56 range, and that's just how it is. But it's the games that collectors know will always retain their value because of the rarity.
Yeah, it's always like weird, like niche shooters and like RPGs.
Always
that hold their
RPG.
value super well.
With the GameCube and like the GBA and now sort of the DS era coming up, like it's the same reason why Super Nintendo carts started to go up in our like early adulthood, because the people who were kids or like young adults when they were playing them, they're adults now and they have
exactly
money
it.
and they're trying to fight it. And now, you know,
They're desperately searching for ways to relive their childhood.
yeah, they
Yeah.
want the GameCube games they played. And so it's only a matter of time until people are like, "Ooh, where can I get a copy of the where can I get a copy of I'm trying to think of something on the Wii that didn't suck. Red Steel." In like 5 years, I bet
$5 game.
Red Steel's going to be like a $60 game again. Because
Yep.
people are gonna be like,
Give
"Oh,
it-
this was
give
like
it
the
3
weird
years.
RPGs like Pandora's Tower or is that
yeah."
the name of the game? I can't remember. There was like 3 like really low, high profile JRPGs that came super late in the Wii cycle.
Yeah. Well, it's always funny, and this is something that collectors fall into, even knowing better, is like PS5 comes out, or even at the end of the PS4's life cycle, and you can go out and you can buy PS4 games for pennies on the dollar. And collecting for a PS4 is so much different than collecting for a PS2 or what we would consider a retro game console. But in 10 years, PS4 games are going to be fucking expensive, and we know better that it's like, well, these games will never be worth anything because X, Y, and Z. But we fucking know better because we've seen it now for 20 plus years. I mean, I started collecting video games in middle school, and I've seen it. And not just like market trends and like things like coming in and out of the collective conscience, I guess, but also like personal habits, what I'm into, and like, well, I'll sell this stuff because I'm never going to care again. Like, collectors are idiots. Trust me. We're all dumb as fuck. And it's just funny to see how things ebb and flow, and the more things change, the more they fucking stay the same. It's just the same cycle over and over and over as these new generations of kids grow up and get real jobs. So
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to change in the future with the availability of things on digital, keeping like mainstream sort of people from like dipping into the market and driving demand on very common games versus like how that affects sales of physical and what people do with their games, because there's nowhere to trade them in really. You get like mom and pop shops, but GameStop isn't really giving people money for their games. It's not going to exist in 10 years probably. And even like local game stores, I don't think they're taking PS4 games on trade. Like, what are they going to get from it? No one's buying that yet. And who's going to hold on to these games for 10 years to get rid of them? Like,
yeah,
it'll be very interesting to see like what that trends into. Like, how long is the Sony store going to hold PS4 games open now that PS5 is backwards compatible and you can buy all those games and play them on PS5 still? Is PS6 going to be different? Is that going to still be able to play PS4 games? Or are they going to keep all their games from PS4 like to be sold? It's interesting. I don't know how that's going to affect the future.
Dude, I would do some terrible things to go back to the days where I could go to a garage sale on my way home from work and come back with a box of games, or Sarah would come back from the Goodwill with a purse full of fucking random Super Nintendo games that she got for $3 a pop.
Right. If I could go back in time and invest in Apple.
Personal joys, right? Things that you never think, like the act of collecting and like hunting these things out and getting good deals and being able to do this fun hobby on a budget was like a source of joy for me for 10 plus years. And then it became a point where it became more of a burden.
You got priced out.
And I got priced out. And it was like, man, that really fucking sucks. And it is what it is. And it's like, I move on to the next thing. And
it's funny how capitalism can price you out of the things you enjoy, huh?
It's funny. I kind of, not that I switched. I mean, I started collecting records probably in 2011. But in the last 2 years, seeing what the secondhand LP market has done is just like, I wasn't ready to be hurt again after video games. You know what I mean? Like I was expecting a few more years of this.
No, you should have been ready. Wasn't it like 2016 or 2017 was the first year that vinyl dollar sales surpassed CD dollar sales?
Yeah.
So like the writing was on the wall at that point.
Well, I mean that's less of a I think indication of like, I guess vinyl's popularity. I mean, more the irrelevancy of CDs and LPs being.
It can be both though. I mean, it was a growth industry at that point. So.
I mean, yeah. Listen, it's a collectible thing. It's not about the music necessarily, or it's not about the physical media itself.
It just sounds warmer.
No, it's bullshit.
This album that was mastered digitally sounds warmer on a piece of plastic.
It's bullshit. Let me tell you, as a collector of vinyl and someone who actually plays their LPs, it's bullshit. They don't sound better. It is a huge pain in the ass. It is only because I'm a sick person who likes spending money and collecting things.
Yeah, you like the big cardboard square.
Yeah, you see back here behind me, maybe. It's just this gigantic bin of fucking records over here. It is only because we are mentally ill. And people, and here's the thing. Here's what you got to do as a collector. And I'm so off the rails here, but you are going to have such a better time enjoying your fucking hobby as a collector when you just grow up and admit that something's wrong in your brain and you just want to enjoy yourself. When you try to justify your habits by like, oh, vinyl just sounds so much rich. Shut the fuck up. It sounds so much worse than just blasting this thing on a Bluetooth through a good sound system. Just fucking enjoy collecting the things you like and enjoy it how you want to enjoy it. You don't have to fucking try to be Mr. Hipster about it and pretend it's better than it is. It's fucking not. Collect your cardboard, weirdo. Put it in a fucking picture frame. I don't care. I mean, I do. That's also dumb, but at least like be honest about it. I respect that more.
I think a lot of the point of having a hobby is to be able to say that you have a hobby.
It's to do the thing.
No, it's not to do the thing. It's to say that you do the thing. It's being able to talk about it and to be like to find a community of it.
Maybe. That's what's so funny for me as a guy who's collected things is like I'm not really ingrained in the community. I have no other friends that collect records. I don't talk about collecting records. I talk about music with my friends. I listen to music. Yeah. I make music.
I think you're a little bit in the minority there, but we went to Portland Retro Gaming Expo.
And I had a lot of fun, man, doing that with my buddy who was also collecting games at the time, albeit in a much different manner than me. Probably that was good for you.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah, that was fun. I had a good time. Sometimes, and I'm not kidding, I did this during the pandemic at one point. I pulled up that fucking video. I showed Sarah that video where like those kids came up to us and they're like, "Are you Gerard?" And they were like asking everybody with a beard if they were Gerard the completionist,
which is a funny bit in retrospect, but I had no idea who that guy was.
Yeah, you were like, what the fuck is going on? These fucking kids asking me these questions.
This is weird. This is a weird time for me.
Dude, it's so funny because in the video, I remember the booth we were at. The guy,
my beard looked really good at that day too, so happy about that.
That was when you grew a lot longer at that point than you do now. You keep it nice and tight now, but you used to really.
It's too itchy.
It's too itchy. Yeah, dude, okay. Okay, I gotta ask Chris. I have zero beard itch. I've had a beard now, full beard. How long is this? I zero beard itch. This doesn't bother me one iota. I guess I'm in the morning there too. Chris, does your beard bother you now that you've grown a nice little Obi-Wan Kenobi thing?
Well, first of all, thank you. And I mean, like, no, I try to. I'm letting it get a little mountain man this summer, but like I'm keeping it off my neckline, and like as long as I keep like this like under chin, not quite neck area clear.
The Majin beard.
The Majin
Majin
beard. Oh God.
Yeah, I just have to make sure.
Thrilling audio content right now.
Yeah,
I know, right?
showing off our beards. We're measuring. As long as I keep
Hold on, let me
that
unzip.
little area clear, it doesn't get like weird and bunchy. Plus, I still have to wear a mask at work because I'm working with kids who are not eligible to get their vaccine, and
Right.
so I'm barely aware of it a lot of the time anyway. But like, no, not really, not particularly.
That's the thing is, it definitely bothers me the first like 3 weeks that I'm growing a beard. And that I've always dealt with. Like, you don't shave for a week and you itch. But like, once it grew out, like, I fucking forget it's on my face completely. And so I guess I'm lucky in that way. I guess it's compensation for the fact that my beard looks like ass and it's red. And it's like the one consolation is that it's not a horrible, obnoxious thing to have to endure in order to have it. So, although I would take an itchy beard if I could grow a beard as good as Nick's. So.
I think just for me, my beard hair, like the actual consistency of it, it's very coarse. My beard hairs are much thicker than the hairs on my head.
Yeah.
So it's wiry. And when it points in on itself and it gets a little dry, it traps the oils in different ways than like on my head. So even if I like, because I do shampoo and I do condition my beard and I do like try to keep it oiled to try and like maintain that moisture going. But it's a lot of upkeep when it gets longer for less benefit, and I get like it's like bedhead, but on my beard, and it's hard to like maintain that, like the look of it. It starts looking bad, and I just don't want to have to like worry about that. If it's shorter, I just have less to deal with. So I just total benefits and like trimming the neck and keeping that lined up and keeping that looking like less like I just don't care. It's something to care about.
I have never trimmed the neck.
I get beard hairs like up on my cheek, like almost halfway between my beard line
look
and my
at
eye.
fucking
I'm
Teen
getting
Wolf
hairs up
over
there.
here bragging about his luscious locks. Make me
So I
feel
have to
bad.
trim that. I have to trim up like near like my eye, between my eye and like my sideburn. I have to trim up here. Otherwise, I just have these like long, thick hairs that are just only 2 or 3 of them, but it just looks weird. You gotta trim that up.
Fair enough.
Gotta trim your unibrow a little bit. You know, you gotta maintain your lines. Keep that lines clean.
Nick, you look good. You look well kept. I'm
A
jealous.
low res cam does wonders for me.
Yeah, right. The fucking blurry background is bleeding onto my features here.
Do we have any games left to talk about? Like,
No, that's it. We're done.
Breath of the Wild 2, we haven't even talked about.
Well, yeah,
it.
we did.
Barely.
We kind of did. I mean, what's to say? Like, you can float around floaty bits, and it's not coming out till next year, so I don't fucking care about it.
They showed a lot of gameplay. They showed
Less
Link
than
with
5 minutes.
a arm being corrupted by a calamity goo, and then later using that same arm as like a mechanical Sheikah slate. He has a mech arm.
That's
And
cool.
he's reversing time with specific things. Like he's taking his stasis power and churning it on its head and like sending blocks in reverse, sucking puddles of water in reverse. He's like meshing his body through a sky island and like crawling out of it. It's crazy.
I've said this for a while now, though, that like Breath of the Wild 2, if they just go back to Hyrule the way it was in the first game, it's just gonna be a way worse game, right? Part of the thing about that first game was the discovery of this whole new world, and I thought, if they want Breath of the Wild 2 to really take off, we need to go through a motherfucking portal and visit a whole different place, and they need to start from scratch.
Yeah, I thought that either they're going to do like time travel or go underground. I did not expect sky islands to be peeled off from the ground and floating upwards. I think they teased that a little bit in the first trailer when they had Hyrule Castle shaking up and stuff.
Right.
But I don't know if they showed it like lifting, because it's definitely in the sky now.
I thought that kind of funny when they were like, Breath of the Wild 2, it's Breath of the Wild, but now you have to fight Ganon up there.
Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild.
Oh, great.
Makes a lot more sense why they're remastering that.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's,
it does.
I don't want to judge it before it comes out, but
It looks awesome. It looks, like you said, buttery. Looks really cool.
Switch Pro imminent.
It does look
I
good.
hope so.
It did look really good in all seriousness. even though it's not coming out till next year, so I'm losing our fantasy critic league. But
Sorry, man.
Yeah, it's fine. You swing big, you win big, or you lose big. There's no middle ground. Yeah, I'm intrigued by this. Something that I didn't realize, and then the internet alerted me to, is that in the original Breath of the Wild, when they are telling the myth of the original hero of time, it looks like motherfucking Ganondorf on the hieroglyphs. It does not look like Link at all. It is a big dude
He's got red hair
with long flowing red hair and a fucking pig face. It's Ganondorf. And so this idea that this is like a tragic fall sort of thing with like Dorf was the original hero of time. The original hero of time was a Gerudo. It wasn't a Hylian, and that there was a fall to darkness, and that's how the calamity came about. Like, that gets my dick hard in a big fucking way.
Oh.
Like I would be hyped to have some like real plot.
I think that's a possibility. I think
You reading
that
deep.
Mummy Ganon could be original hero of time, and it is now encapsulating Link, and he is becoming that to fulfill a time loop prophecy, and that the stuff in the sky could be in the past or in the future, or what's the difference?
That's so cool.
And why is it mummified underneath? Presumably, we don't know for sure, but strongly suggested. Why is that person, presumably the same one from the placard in the myth? Why are they mummified underneath Hyrule Castle?
Or just underground in general.
Yeah, if they're
What's
not
happening there?
the original hero
that
of time.
spiral of like blue glowing energy, and then it changing into the red like corrupted calamity energy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff. They showed it's a super dense trailer, and obviously YouTubers are going to be going crazy about this shit for the next 6 months. And I'll be stupid enough and watch maybe 5 of them and be like, "Oh, that's a really cool idea." And like have my own ideas, and then everything be completely wrong or totally right when the game eventually comes out. But I think what they showed was really cool, both lore-wise and mechanics-wise. They showed a lot of gameplay stuff in this trailer. And it's all cool things that I wouldn't have thought that they would do. Like I never had like an idea of what they would be doing as far as mechanics and like what your gameplay is, but having the Sheikah Slate arm and Link just throwing a rock back up a hill into these bokoblins that are very basically changed, but not very much. Having that encampment on the Talos, so tight.
Yeah, just seeing that go and like stand up, I went, oh.
And one of them like blowing the horn to like summon it, and it just standing up. It just looks really cool, and they showed very little, but it was very dense, and it's exciting. And seeing like just such a minor change, like minor changes like Zelda having shorter hair or Link having his hair down, is like it doesn't matter at all, but it's still a minor change that, like, why would they change it? What are they trying to say? What is the implication? What does it mean? It's cool.
Is it Link? Is it Link?
Yeah. Are we still Link?
You do know that in the entire trailer, we do not see their face one time, right? The entire video, not one shot of Link's face.
I mean, we see the arm, and the arm is also shown on Link being taken by the calamity. And also, it wouldn't be Zelda because it is literally a toga, and they're not going to have a game with Zelda with one boob hanging out.
No, I don't necessarily think it's Zelda either, but I also don't necessarily think it's the Link that we know from Breath of the Wild, especially with the Skyward Sword-y elements and the potential for like time fuckery. This could be a different hero of the Wild from a different stage of the timeline of this Hyrule. I just think that like
I don't think that's impossible, but I think it's highly unlikely. Highly unlikely.
Oh, that's one to end on.
It's gonna take a Hylian effort to make Breath of the Wild 2 distinct and unique and a worthy successor to not only what Breath of the Wild did, but also how people have conflated Breath of the Wild 2 as being the best video game of all time in their minds in the 5 years since the game came out.
For sure. It's much harder to impress people with a sequel than it is a new thing.
So, but if anyone can do it, I don't want to give Nintendo that much credit. We hope they can do it.
I think what they've shown is impressive.
Yeah, it's been cool. It's like, all right, it's something different. Especially how definitively the last game ended. It's like, well, where do you go from here, right? fucking with time sounds like the way you would fucking do it, right? You just expand on that, and I'm all in on that. And you know what I love is when time travel mechanics are done right in the actual gameplay. Like Titanfall 2 did time travel / like, I guess, like dimensional fuckery, like in such a fucking great way.
Yeah, effect and cause. I think there's the possibility for this game to be like Legend of Zelda Braid of the Wild with cool time loop stuff.
I'd be super into that. That'd be cool. That's awesome. And it's another like unique way to just incorporate puzzles in a game where you
the
probably
puzzles in this game would be so good.
Right.
Oh man.
But, like, you can't do 120 shrines again, so like our dungeon's gonna come back. Time travel fuckery is another way you can bring back the bite size puzzles again without necessarily having to be like, all right, you have 3 places to go this entire game.
Or how much is on the ground, how much is in the sky, what's that balance look like? They showed stuff that we don't know if this is all early game stuff. We don't know what the context for a lot of these interactions are. And Zelda Breath of the Wild had a very, okay, here's the beginning area where you're getting all your stuff, and then here's 100 hours of doing whatever the fuck you want with those 4 things.
Right.
So there was no early late game. There was like the beginning and then everything else.
And then everything
so
else.
So I wonder what the pacing for this is. Like, what is it, a more linear sort of experience? Could they go back to that? Would people be upset if they went back to that? What would we think of it? You know, everything is up in the air at this point. And 2022, they said in the press release that they're aiming for 2022. So there's still a possibility that it goes to 2023.
2023, baby.
Yeah, when they said aiming, I went, oh no, we're not seeing that thing.
To think that there was anyone who thought it was coming out this year is still a little bit funny to me. I know Chris was hoping, but you also hoped for Final Fantasy 16, and you know, bless your little heart.
Neither of those companies had a holiday release title slated, and frankly, they still don't. So I guess Metroid comes out in October.
Metroid Dread is October 26th.
Oh.
And that's not,
my goodness.
It's not a headliner. I mean, you all need to buy it because we need more people to buy it, but it's not a headliner. So yeah,
you can buy it. You buy it for us. You buy it for us, yeah.
It shows a lot of I don't know what the word I'm thinking of is, but to see Nintendo put that at October and have nothing else makes me think that they think it's a great game and it's going to sell well if they market it well.
Yeah, totally. That's the Odyssey
October 8th,
slot,
not 26th. Yeah, Odyssey was October 26th. This is October 8th. I was getting those 2 dates mixed up. Mario Party is also late October, and that sold really well. Super Mario Party sold like 10 million copies, so obviously people are idiots for Mario and multiplayer Mario. So just looking at their slate as like what's later this year, I think it is Mario Party is their big October game. Sometimes they do another like November, December game like with Xenoblade or Smash Bros, but I don't know if they would be so bold as to wait until September to talk about something that late in the year. And like, why wouldn't they show it now unless they were not certain that it would make it this year and then seeing how development goes?
Well, fellas, I got a bladder full of beer. That is the E3 press conference. I had fun bullshit about that. I got off the rails there. I appreciate you.
Elden Ring.
Humoring me. Listen, I was off by 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And I get 0 points for it.
You can first bid it at our January 1st, 2022.
Fuck that shit.
Fantasy draft.
We drafted when? February, March?
Yeah, well, we were late.
Fuck, man.
We can totally get back on track with that next year.
Fucking boned, man.
And I'm going to swipe it from EJ. I'm going to fucking swipe it from him for next year's draft.
Bitch. I'm swiping Metroid from you.
While we were on this call, I bid exactly $82 on Metroid Dread, which is $1 more than EJ can afford. So congrats to me. I own that now.
And that leaves you $11 for everything else. Okay,
here's the problem. I only have 1 slot. So I can only really get 1 more game. So that $82 is virtually useless to me unless they announce like... No, it's useless to me at this point. Like, I'm like trying to find a banger of a game I can spend my money on. Anyway, that's disappointing. Classic Crusade Podcast. Get us out of here.